Today's episode is brought to you by Media for All, which was set up to help encourage more Black, Asian, and other ethnic talent into media, and to provide a support and mentoring network to ensure talent flourishes in the media industry that we all love. If you're looking for a mentor or would like to mentor young ethnic talent, check them out at mediaforall.org.uk, and it is all 100% free.
Hello and welcome to the Shiny New Object podcast. My name is Tom Ollerton. I'm the founder of Automated Creative, and this is a podcast about the future of marketing. Every week or so, I have the pleasure and privilege of interviewing one of our industry's leaders about their predictions and their vision for the future of the industry. And this week is absolutely no different. I'm on a call with Titherington, who is head of brands at Eagle Eye. Catherine, for those of the people in the audience who don't know who you are and what you do, could you just give everyone a bit of a background?
Yeah, hi Tom, great to be here. So my role at Eagle Eye is head of brands. So I work with a number of different brand partners who are looking to do activations, predominantly in the on-trade, but also potentially the grocery trade as things move forward. My background really is marketing from day one, I guess, but on the other side of the desk. So originally my career started within the leisure industry when I launched, along with some other team members, Camelot theme park, the American Adventure, and then I moved on to be marketing manager for Blackpool Tower when it was the centenary. And one of the greatest, I guess, achievements in my career at that time was achieving 1 million visitors through Blackpool Tower, which was fantastic. Following on from that, I moved into the agency world and worked for a number of different large strategic agencies, and then decided to set up my own agency and ran an agency for about 10 years. Only small, but we did some great things. One of the good things we did was getting Preston city status. So that was something nice. And then from that, I continued on the marketing sort of route, sold the agency, but continued to work in the marketing field and joined Eagle Eye. I think it's 9 years ago currently, and wanted to really explore how digital activations and the world of digital was working with brands, agencies, and how the whole shift towards digital was moving really. So over the past sort of 9 years, the world has changed phenomenally, and you know, we're looking at some great concepts and ideas working with brands and agencies, which really sort of keeps us at the forefront of knowing what's coming through. So yeah, so it's been a good journey really, I guess.
So in that time, what has been your biggest work fuck up that at the time you were like, I can't believe this has happened, but in retrospect, you're really glad that it did?
Well, I was trying to think. There's been a couple of different things that have happened. They're not necessarily me per se, but I've been part of what's happened in a couple of different situations. One was when I had an agency myself, and we were working with Guide Dogs for the Blind charity around that time, and they were doing a lot of fundraising activities for the charity itself. And one of their ideas was a series of different events over the course of the year. One of the events was National Barbecue Week, and the idea was to get everybody, similar to how Macmillan do coffee, the coffee day sort of fundraising activity, but they've got this specific weekend around National Barbecue Weekend where they were going to launch it to the public. So they'd allocated quite a big budget to this. We'd produced 500,000 leaflets that were going out to various of their sort of charitable shops and things like that. And they were due to be distributed, and it had a nice bright picture of a burger over a fire, and, you know, really quite engaging. But the couple of days before this was due to go out, we suddenly found that it was a major incident similar to COVID, but it was foot and mouth disease. And suddenly all these burning pyres were appearing throughout the country of all these cows being destroyed. So it was an absolute nightmare, really. And they decided they were going to pull the whole campaign. So I guess learning from that, it was a big disaster from the perspective of a campaign, you know, being pulled at the last minute. But it's just being aware of what's going on around you and how you can start to think and mitigate circumstances, so you can think from a different perspective if, you know, a big disaster like that is happening. And I guess just looking at now what's happening within the hospitality sector, they're in a similar sort of situation, but it's prolonged, obviously. And it's really difficult to then start thinking how you can change your circumstances, your offering, you know, everything that you're doing with something that is out of your control. So that's been a big learning over time, being able to think of how you can, you know, counteract disasters and things that are happening. You know, it's always been at the forefront of my mind when you're developing ideas and concepts, I guess, and working on behalf of other people. Yeah, so
how do you educate yourself? Are you like a conference goer, or are you a book reader? Are you a sort of marketing book fan? Like, over the years and all these interesting and different roles you've had, what has been your kind of central way of learning and developing yourself?
Well, it's quite interesting, really, because Eagle-Eye this last couple of weeks have given us access to a book called Clifton Strengths, which has been quite interesting. And it's an online psychometric survey that actually pulls out your key strengths as an individual and using those strengths as part of your everyday work life. And that's something that I found really interesting, because at the moment, well, for the past 6 years, I've been doing an open university degree in psychology, because the one thing I've found in marketing is, yes, and I've got all my marketing qualifications, obviously, over the years, which are very, you know, structured and functional and, you know, great. But the one thing that I've found that has influenced me as an individual has been around people and understanding people. And if you can understand people, you can communicate with them. And it's a question of listening. So the things I found that I'm good at, you know, I can then start to use as part of my communication skills. So some of the things that came out, the top sort of 5 things were that I'm an activator, I like to get things done. I'm a relator, I like to communicate. I'm strategic, so I'm thinking. I'm a learner, hence my open university. You know, I'm interested in things, and I like individualization, you know, people who are unique. And I think I've learned a lot from books that I've read over time. So looking at sort of marketing books, I would say the books that I find really interesting are more about people and change and how we can start to develop ideas around that. So one of my favorite books, it only takes half an hour to read, is Who Moved My Cheese? I don't know if anybody's heard of that, but it's only a very short book, but it's basically a parable of 4 characters who live in a maze, and they're looking for cheese to nourish them. And it's basically a metaphor. The cheese is a metaphor for what you want to have in life, and whether that's a good job, a successful career, or peace of mind, that sort of thing. It's how you achieve that. And the maze basically is where you go and how you find that. And to me, that I've come across that so many times in life, in my career, you know, that change happens and you need to adapt and look in different ways around things. So I found that sort of quite interesting. The other book I've sort of really come across a lot in terms of different scenarios is called The Tipping Point. And so many businesses that I've worked with over time want to get to that next level. And it's understanding how you achieve that tipping point as a business so that you move to that next level and can grow and develop the business without holding it back. And I think that is a fascinating insight into how businesses sort of market themselves and start to let it flourish and grow. And I think where we are now with Eagle Eye, we're at a big sort of tipping point in terms of this world sort of becoming a different digital space. So that is really quite interesting. So I would say there, you know, sort of a couple of key books. I've got others and I read all the time, so I find this question is quite fascinating, really. I guess I'm not fixed in ideas. I like to delve into somebody else's world and understand things from their perspective so that I can learn from that. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's, you know, it's not just about, you know, the expertise in marketing per se, but it's more about people and how they have done things that I'm interested in.
That's so fascinating. And I'll have to, and you say it's called Who Moved My Cheese? I'll have to check that out. That sounds right up my street. This episode of the Shiny New Object podcast is brought to you in partnership with MadFest. Whether it's live in London or streamed online to the global marketing community, you can always expect a distinctive and daring blend of fast-paced content, startup innovation pitches, and unconventional entertainment from MadFest events. You'll find me causing trouble on stage, recording live versions of this podcast, and sharing a beer with the nicest and most influential people in marketing. Check it out at www.madfestlondon.com. So we are at the halfway stage now, and what we're going to do now is talk about your shiny new object. And I have to hold my hand up and confess something here, that this is the 100th Shiny New Object podcast, and never have I used this platform to promote Automated Creative's work, other than the fact I say I work for Automated Creative. But we are in partnership right now, Eagle Eye and Automated Creative, and it is very exciting. And I really, one of my highlights of the year was when we had our first conversation and we realized how our two different technologies could work together. So the shiny new object for this podcast is our partnership. That's its title. So it would be really great for you to tell the audience a little bit more about Eagle Eye, like specifically what is it, what's great about Eagle Eye, and then what you see as the benefits of the partnership with Automated Creative being, and then we could talk through a little bit through a case study and so on. But help the audience understand what Eagle Eye is, what it does, and what's great about it.
Yeah, so where to start, really? I mean, we're a digital activation partner for some of the UK and worldwide companies that are looking to move towards a total omni-channel, personalized approach when it comes to engaging with consumers. So most of our business is linked through the retail sector, and that's usually the grocery sector as well as hospitality. And for those clients of ours, we run personalized loyalty programs, gift programs, promotional activity, where there's a unique identifier, a consumer at the end of every interaction that we make on behalf of our clients, be that the retailer themselves, a brand, or a consumer. So there's all that sort of interaction, and we sit at the heart of the interactions between the different media channels that a consumer is engaging with and those offline merchants. So in effect, we're sort of the offline cookie, if you will. So we can measure what people are doing once they're engaging with those different channels. And I think that's where we could see the partnership forming with Automated Creative, because it can give a brand or a merchant a lot more insight into how their consumers are engaging with their ads, and we can then track those individuals down the path to purchase, into redemption in a store. So if you look at that as what happens in the online world, that happens automatically, but not necessarily in the offline world. And that's where I guess Eagle Eye come into that, because we can then start to see how people are engaging in that offline world. So yeah, so that I guess is the starting point, and that's where we got quite excited about what we could do. So yeah, so it's a really interesting place that we're at the moment.
Yeah, so it's worth just giving a slight overview of what Automated Creative do. So we, for anyone who's listening who doesn't know, we are an ad tech platform that sits between the creative agency and the media agency. So we take the creative agency has done, and then we upload all that into our tool, and then we're able to generate hundreds and thousands of ads kind of instantly, and then we run them in partnership with the media agency against however many audiences the brands have, and then based on the data that comes back from each one of those individual ads, we automatically generate new creatives. And because we're all ex-agency people, we bring a creative and strategic sensibility to that process, which means that we're able to deliver these huge leaps in performance, but actually also be able to tell brands at a granular level why their ads work from a visual, messaging and language style and format perspective. So performance and insight sort of combined. And obviously with your status as being the offline cookie, which I really like as a description of what you guys do, we can link not only like a specific ad on social or on display to an actual real world coupon redemption, but because we know why that person's clicked on that ad, we know the emotional triggers, we can actually link that up with your data. And I think that's best worked with the campaign we did with Jameson. So Jameson wanted to drive redemptions of coupons for a JGL, which is a Jameson ginger and lime. It's nearly 1 o'clock. It's starting to sound really good. Getting towards the end of the day, and so what we did was we took the assets from the brand, and there was a real mix of different visual triggers, whether that was around a kind of partying or bars or clubs or the actual cocktail itself. But we were also able to not just optimize to those visual triggers, but we were also able to optimize at a city level and also generate unique ads for the 67 partner bars. So the optimization was so incredibly granular that we could optimize at a city level and a bar level into the kind of ads each city and audience wanted. So we over a series of weeks, we were able to drill down into the visual triggers, the written triggers, the format triggers that drove performance. So at the end of the campaign, we were able to say, what was the performance? I think it was like 20 or 30% over target on the redemption goal, as I remember. But as much as we're able to show those great numbers, we're also able to talk about the DNA of the best performing ads that got people there. So now Jameson have a really granular understanding of the type of written and visual triggers that work for that audience in those markets and at a bar level. So it's really exciting to us, and I think moving forward, we're looking for those brand partners who want to be able to combine online advertising and social or display to real world redemption, whether that's hospitality or grocery, as you mentioned. And I know that we're looking into other verticals as well, but it's so exciting to work out what we could do next, because the data that we could produce is incredible. But that's where I see it, Catherine. But I don't know, what do you have to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's that real practical learning that people can get from the information that comes back, that they can reapply almost straight away. So there is a big data aspect to it, but I think it's the real time optimization that you can do with the data that's coming back. Especially if you've got a campaign that's running over a couple of months, and you're feeding this data back, you can start to use that and optimize your activity. So it's very cost effective, and you're hitting the right buttons with the consumer. So I think it's the start of really exciting times, being able to join that together. It has been done, obviously, previously, but maybe segmented, people looking at certain aspects and not joining it together with other aspects. But I think this works really well because it's that real end-to-end flow, and being able to understand, consumers and their interaction with the ads. So yeah, exciting.
Right. Well, Catherine, look, let's leave it there. I feel kind of a bit cheeky doing self-promotion on this podcast, but it's been great to hear your story. I've learned loads about you actually in the last 20 minutes or so, which I didn't know, which is great. So I really appreciate you finding the time for this podcast. And if anyone wants to get in touch, just reach out to either Eagle Eye or Automated Creative via their websites, I guess, and we'll go from there. But Catherine, thank you so much.
Brilliant. And thank you for asking me. Thanks.
Hi, just before you go, I'd really appreciate it if you could take the time to write a review of the Shiny New Object podcast on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, whatever it's called these days, or whichever podcast provider you use. We're an indie podcast, so it would go a long way for us if you could just share the word and give us a bit of a support on those channels. That would just be fantastic. If you haven't got time, that's also cool. And if you could tell your colleagues about the podcast, and also, if possible, don't forget to subscribe. And I'd love to hear your feedback. If you'd like to speak on the podcast or be a guest, or you think I'm asking the wrong questions, anything, I'd be super interested to hear what you think. So please email me at tom@automatedcreative.net. That's TOM at, I'm not going to bother spelling it. Anyway, you'll work it out. Thanks so much.